Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to tell you a story. It's a true crime story from India that absolutely shook the entire nation.
It really did.
And this isn't just about, one single crime. It's about a terrifying series of events. Events that kind of weave together some really complex things, social issues, the justice system, religion, caste.
Yeah, and the chilling part is how easily someone could get hold of something so deadly. Cyanide.
Exactly, cyanide. And at the center of it all is this one man, a predator who used, charm and deceit to lure his victims.
Leaving just this awful trail of sorrow and mystery behind him.
And the number of lives he ended? It's estimated at least 20. Some even think it could be more.
It's staggering.
It really is. So let's get into this. Let's unpack this truly chilling tale. The fateful disappearance of Anitha. Okay, so our story really kicks off on June 17, 2009. That's when a young one, Anitha, just 22 years old, vanished.
Just disappeared.
Yeah, without a trace. Now, Anitha was from a small, very poor village in India. And significantly, she belonged to what's considered a low caste.
And that background, her social standing, unfortunately had a huge impact on how her disappearance was initially handled, didn't it?
It absolutely did. There was this initial indifference from the authorities.
Right, and it's really important here to understand some of the context.
Yeah.
The source material we looked at discusses this highly controversial term, love jihad, which was being talked about a lot back then.
Oh, yes.
So this is basically an accusation, mainly from some Hindu groups, alleging that Muslim men were intentionally luring Hindu women into marriage.
For conversion, right?
Exactly. For religious conversion and sort of ultimately to increase the Muslim population. It's a really, really sensitive and politically charged issue over there.
Definitely.
And we just want to be clear, we're reporting what's in the source material about how this idea factored into the conversation at the time. We're not endorsing the viewpoint itself.
Absolutely crucial context, because that's the environment she vanished into. So as days went by with no news, Anitha's community, they got incredibly worried.
Understandably.
It escalated. About 150 villagers actually gathered, they protested, put serious pressure on the police.
Wow.
They were desperate. They even threatened to burn down the police station if the authorities didn't do something, didn't act to find Anitha.
That's immense pressure.
Huge pressure. So under that duress, the police finally, maybe reluctantly, took some steps.
Okay.
First thing they did, they pulled Anitha's phone records.
The phone records. Always key.
And right away, they found this frequently called number, a number that just screams suspicion.
The first real lead.
Exactly. The very first thread in what turned out to be a much, much larger, darker story. Too. A chilling pattern emerges. So while Anitha's case is just starting to move, there's another police team somewhere else. They're reviewing old missing persons reports. Standard procedure,
Right.
And they stumble onto something really disturbing. They start seeing a pattern.
A pattern.
Yeah, a trend. Around 20 similar cases. Young women, unmarried, poor, low caste, all disappearing from the same general region.
Between 2004 and 2009.
Exactly. Over those 5 years. It couldn't be a coincidence.
No way. But it does make you wonder, if this pattern was there, why did it take so long to connect these dots?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And later, the police found something even more astonishing about the phone numbers from these cases.
What was that?
The phone numbers of all 20 of these missing women. They were interconnected, linked.
All of them. Wow.
Yeah. Which initially made the police think, okay, maybe this is some big human trafficking ring. The victim profiles were so similar.
That makes sense as an initial theory.
It does.
So the connection was literally in their phone calls.
Yeah.
But then things take an incredibly dark turn. Anitha's investigating team, they start calling other police stations about these other 20 women.
Right, following up on that pattern.
And they learn the horrifying truth. All of them, every single one, had already been found dead.
Oh my God.
Often just days after they disappeared. This wasn't just missing persons anymore. It was a mass murder situation that had somehow flown under the radar.
Unbelievable. Completely unnoticed.
And Anitha tragically fit right into this awful pattern. Her body was eventually found 160 kilometers away from her home village.
So far away.
Yeah, and the signs were clear. Poisoning foaming at the mouth, and eerily, she was wearing this bridal-type outfit.
Just like the others.
Well, that became clearer as they looked closer. The commonalities were horrifying. Many victims found in public restrooms, bus stations, temples.
Places with transient populations.
Exactly. Always outside their hometowns, and all showing similar signs of poisoning.
So why wasn't this spotted sooner?
Well, it seems like a few things. Local news only reported individual deaths, not the bigger picture.
Right, isolated incidents.
And sadly, the victim profiles, poor, low-caste women, often meant their cases just weren't prioritized or investigated thoroughly across different police jurisdictions. There wasn't enough communication.
That failure of coordination. 9 different police stations were involved eventually. That lack of communication was just a massive loophole.
Tragically exploited by the killer.
And when they finally did proper examinations, the poison was confirmed.
Cyanide. Yeah.
And look, initially there were some conflicting ideas, maybe suicide, maybe murder, but getting cyanide isn't easy. That, plus the circumstances, really pointed strongly towards murder.
It became undeniable.
Yeah, this wasn't a series of tragic accidents. It was the calculated work of a predator. 3, the hunt for the predator. Mohan Kumar.
Okay, so that web of interconnected phone calls, that was the key.
Yeah.
That thread led the police to the city of Mangaluru.
Right, following the digital breadcrumbs.
And that's where they got a huge break. A key witness came forward. A woman.
Okay.
She bravely said she'd seen Anitha, the first victim we talked about, with a man she actually knew.
Wow, a direct link.
A direct link. So the police acted fast. They used this witness, basically, to set a trap, to lure this suspect out.
Risky, but necessary.
Absolutely. And the meeting itself was apparently chillingly ordinary. The man, who they later identified as Mohan Kumar, he reportedly just charmed the witness. Soft voice, persuasive.
The same charm he used on his victims.
Exactly. He even proposed marriage to the witness.
Yeah.
And here's the clincher.
Yeah.
He offered no dowry.
No dowry. That connects directly back to the other victims found in those bridal outfits, right? That was his signature lure.
It was his calling card. That detail sealed it. So on October 21st, 2009, Mohan Kumar was arrested.
Finally.
And his background was just deeply unsettling. He was 46 years old, a former primary school teacher.
You're a teacher.
Yeah. Taught English, science, math in a rural area. It was just so hard for people to square this seemingly normal guy, a teacher, with these monstrous crimes they were uncovering.
I can only imagine the shock.
Yeah.
And then came the confession, right? That must have been the moment everything broke wide open.
It was. He admitted it. He confessed to murdering Anitha and then 18 others.
18.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Confirmed by him. Police suspected, based on patterns and unsolved cases, it could be 20, maybe even as high as 32.
Just the scale of it is almost incomprehensible.
Former school teacher.
What?
The confession sent absolute shockwaves across India. The idea that someone like that, someone in a position of trust, could do this, it was just unthinkable for so many. 4, Mohan's deceptive modus operandi, Mohan's method, his whole system, it was chillingly precise and just built on deception, exploiting vulnerabilities.
Systematically.
Yeah. First, how he chose his victims. It was disturbingly specific. He looked for unmarried women, poor, low caste, often hanging around bus stations, parks.
Places where they might be more vulnerable, maybe more isolated.
Exactly. And in Indian society at the time, their clothes, their demeanor, it made them identifiable. But more than that, their social standing often meant they were just desperate for a better life, for acceptance.
And he preyed on that desperation.
Totally. Then came the lure. He'd approach them, use that charm, that soft voice we heard about, build trust.
Posing as someone respectable,
Right.
like a government official.
Often, yeah. Showed understanding for their situation. And then the big hook. Offered true love, marriage, but crucially without any dowry. No big ceremonies needed.
Which would be incredibly appealing, given the huge financial and social pressures of dowries for women in those circumstances.
Devastatingly appealing. So he'd gain their trust, take them to a distant city, always stayed in hotels near bus stations,
Easy access, easy escape.
and always used fake names, never left a real trail.
Smart in a horrifying way.
After they were intimate, he'd tell them, okay, now we need to do a marriage ritual or go register the marriage.
Setting up the final act.
Exactly. And just before this supposed ceremony came the most sinister part. He'd tell them, take off all your jewelry. For safety, he'd say. I'm worried it might get stolen.
Getting rid of valuables and potential identification later.
Right. Then he'd say, okay, because we were intimate, you should take this birth control pill. And he'd tell them to take it in a public restroom.
But it wasn't a birth control pill.
No, it was cyanide. Disguised. The victims would go into the restroom, take the pill, and die very quickly.
Convulsing.
Locked inside.
Well, he just waited outside.
Or nearby.
Yeah.
Then he'd calmly go back to the hotel room, take any remaining valuables, check out, pawn the items,
And move on.
and move on to find his next victim.
And the phone, that detail about the phones is just ingenious and awful.
Tell us about that.
Well, he'd take the phone from the victim he just killed
Right.
and use that phone to contact potential new victims. That's how he created that interconnected web of calls the police found.
Oh my God. So he was using the dead victim's identity essentially to groom the next one.
Precisely. A chilling cycle of deception and death, making him incredibly hard to track until Anita's case finally connected everything. The man behind the monsters, Mohan's background and motives.
After he was arrested, the shocking details about his personal life started coming out.
Right, the mask came off.
Completely. Turns out, Mohan Kumar wasn't single. He had a wife, 2 children, living a seemingly normal life. But wait. Secretly, he'd started a whole second family. Another wife, 2 more children, in a totally different city.
2 families. How did he manage that?
Apparently, neither his parents nor his first wife had any clue about this secret second life. The level of compartmentalization, of duplicity. It's staggering.
Mind-boggling.
So who was this guy before all this? He was born in 1963, rural village, poor background.
Okay.
But people said he had a happy childhood. He was seen as bright, got a university degree. He was even an athlete, played kabaddi, cricket.
So not someone you'd necessarily predict would turn into this.
Not at all. Descriptions were quiet, polite, gentle, very devoted to his mother, especially after his father left when he was about 10. And he started his career as a primary school teacher, a respected job.
So what went wrong? Was there an earlier sign?
There was an earlier brush with the law, yeah. Years before. He got a 1-month prison sentence.
For what?
The charge was pushing a woman into water after she rejected him. He claimed it was an accident.
But she said
he tried to kill her because she turned him down, knowing he was married. That incident cost him his teaching job.
Okay. Losing his job. That could be a turning point.
Seems like it. And this is where it gets really, really dark.
Yeah.
Because that time in prison seems to have been pivotal.
How so?
While he was inside, just for that month, he shared a cell with a gem dealer.
Okay. A random connection.
A random connection. And this cellmate apparently just casually mentioned using cyanide to clean gold.
Right. That's a known use in jewelry making.
Yeah. But then the cellmate mentioned, chillingly, how he had accidentally killed 8 animals. Goats, cows, because they ingested some cyanide he hadn't stored properly.
Oh, wow.
And hearing that apparently struck this dark idea in Mohan's mind.
That cyanide was easy, undetectable.
Exactly. An easy, undetectable way to, as he apparently thought of it, dispose of women he didn't want commitment with after the affair.
So prison gave him the idea.
Seems like it planted the seed. So after he got out, he needed the cyanide. He just posed as a gem dealer himself.
And found someone to sell it to him.
Apparently easily convinced a vendor, and just like that, he had his weapon. The perfect tool for his horrifying plan.
And the motives. Did he ever say why?
He never really revealed his true motives. It's mostly speculation based on the facts.
But the leading theories.
Connected all together. Likely financial hardship. Supporting 2 secret families, 4 children. That's a huge strain.
Yeah, that makes sense financially.
Plus, the realization that cyanide was this almost perfect weapon for him, hard to detect, quick, and he saw he could exploit the lack of coordination in the justice system.
It was this awful combination then. Financial pressure, the deadly knowledge, and this ability to just slip through the cracks.
A terrifying mix of circumstance, opportunity, and just a complete lack of empathy. 6. Understanding cyanide, the silent killer. That chilling efficiency he had. It all hinged on his weapon of choice, cyanide.
The silent killer.
Yeah. So to really get the horror of his method, let's just talk briefly about cyanide itself. It's actually more common than people might realize.
It is. It's used in various industries, like making plastics. It comes in different forms, too. Gas solutions. It's not just some rare poison from spy movies.
Right.
And, it raises the question, where else might you encounter it? Surprisingly, cyanide actually occurs naturally in some foods.
Really? Like what?
Things like raw cassava root and raw bamboo shoots.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is exactly why it's so important to cook those things thoroughly. Cooking neutralizes the toxins.
Good to know. So how does it actually kill? What does it do to the body?
Basically, it suffocates your cells from the inside. It binds to iron in your blood cells, specifically in the mitochondria, which prevents your body's tissues from actually using the oxygen that your blood is carrying. So even if you're breathing fine, your cells are starving for oxygen.
Yeah, the body just shuts down.
Rapidly. Cellular failure, organ failure. It's incredibly fast and devastating.
And the symptoms, what would someone notice?
They're pretty horrific. Nausea, vomiting, dizziness, blurred vision. Then it can quickly progress to convulsions.
Is there that almond smell people talk about?
Sometimes, yeah. A distinctive bitter almond smell on the breath can be a sign, but not everyone can smell it, and it's not always present. Another sign doctors look for is sometimes this cherry red skin appearance.
Why cherry red?
Because the blood is still full of oxygen, it just can't deliver it to the tissues, so it stays bright red.
That's terrifying. So, first aid. What should someone do if they suspect cyanide poisoning?
Okay, number one, absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Call for emergency medical help immediately. Ambulance, 911, whatever your local number is. Time is everything.
Right.
If the person has no pulse, you can start CPR, chest compressions. And this is vital, never do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Why not?
Because there's a real risk of the rescuer being exposed to the cyanide themselves, either through ingestion or inhalation if it was cyanide gas.
Okay, that's crucial. No mouth-to-mouth.
Definitely not. Really, prevention is key. But if it happens, immediate professional medical help is the only real chance. There are antidotes, but they're complex, often involving multiple components, and need to be given by medical professionals quickly. 7. Justice served and lessons learned.
So Mohan Kumar eventually faced trial, and it was apparently quite a strange affair.
How so?
He chose to represent himself, act as his own lawyer.
Seriously, after confessing to so many murders.
Yep, and his argument in court was basically that his victims weren't murdered. He claimed they chose to take the poison themselves.
Trying to shift the blame entirely? Unbelievable.
He tried to twist the whole narrative, but thankfully it didn't work. Justice was served.
Good. So the verdict.
He was convicted, formally, for 20 cases. Though, as we said, police still suspect the real number could be higher, maybe 32.
Right.
For those convictions, he received a death sentence for 4 of the murders and life imprisonment for 15 others.
So a mix of sentences.
Yeah. Plus fines for all the other related crimes, the poisoning itself, rape, theft, destroying evidence.
And is he still?
As far as we know, yes. He remains in prison today, awaiting execution on those death sentences.
Wow. Well, this whole case, it leaves you with some chilling lessons, doesn't
It
it?
really does. What stands out to you?
Well, just the stark reminder about caution, Not blindly trusting strangers, obviously,
Yeah.
but maybe even questioning things more with people we think we know.
True.
And just being aware of your surroundings, understanding the vulnerabilities that exist in society, the ones he exploited so ruthlessly.
Yeah.
Ultimately, prevention is always the best defense. And maybe this case highlighted the need for better coordination between police forces, too.
Absolutely. Systemic improvements are key.
Yeah.
And on a practical level, if you ever suspect any kind of poisoning, cyanide, or anything else, please get information fast.
Yeah, poison control centers are a great resource.
Definitely. Call them. And if symptoms are severe, don't wait. Get to a hospital immediately. It's just not worth the risk.
Absolutely crucial advice.
No. So we hope that exploring this truly chilling story has been informative, maybe thought-provoking for you listening.
It's a tough one, but important.
Yeah. The sheer scale of Mohan's crimes, the way he preyed on vulnerability, and just understanding the danger of substances like cyanide. These are powerful things to take away.
Mm-hmm.
If you found this story compelling and you want to hear more deep dives into these kinds of cases, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Horror Docs channel.
Your support really does help us keep telling these important, often difficult stories.
It absolutely does. So until next time, please stay safe and be well.